Eyewitness News is your local election headquarters. Tonight, live from our studios in East Providence, a debate in the Republican primary for governor. Good evening, I'm Tim White. Thank you for joining us. I will be asking questions along with my colleague, Eyewitness News reporter Ted Nesi. Now, the criteria to be included in our debates is set by our parent company. Of those who qualified, Patricia Morgan is the only candidate who accepted our invitation. We did also invite Cranston Mayor Allan Fung, but he declined to participate. Representative Morgan, thank you very much for joining us. As always, we begin with a 1-minute opening statement. Ms. Morgan, your 1-minute opening statement.
Allan Fung and Gina Raimondo have something in common. Neither of them want to answer questions about their record. I'll address Gina Raimondo in the general election, but tonight I'd like to focus on Allan Fung. Allan Fung says he wants to do for the state what he's done to the city of Cranston. Let's think about that. Cranston is the 8th highest taxed municipality in Rhode Island. That's a crushing tax burden. He's raised taxes 20%. At the same time that his friend Speaker Mattiello is shoveling state dollars into Cranston. He's increased spending by more than the state budget has increased in the same period of time. And Cranston taxpayers pay 27% more for their fire services than the people in Warwick, a city of the same size. And then there's the damaging and costly scandals. That's not the Rhode Island I want. I want to make sure that we do lower the cost of government and lower the cost of living. And I want every Rhode Islander to have financial security.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan, for your opening statements. Let's dive right into the questions. You've pointed out that repeatedly Allan Fung has refused to do televised debates before the primary, despite agreeing to do so with us months ago. And he's largely ducking reporter questions. So what do you think is the single biggest unanswered question that Mayor Fung needs to answer?
You know, I actually just mentioned it. He keeps saying that he wants the rest of the state to be like Cranston. The only thing I can see is he's bragging about getting a shopping center built in his city. There's a lot of other questions to be answered there. I mean, really, they are a high-taxed municipality. It is the study or the ranking that he got clearly didn't take taxes and tax burden into account, because the people in that city really do have high taxes, 8th highest. And you have to remember, at the same time that they're 8th highest, Speaker Mattiello has been pouring money, extra money, additional state dollars from the other taxpayers into the city of Cranston.
Despite that, even in your own poll, Allan Fung is beating you in that poll, and he has higher favorability numbers in the Eyewitness News Roger Williams University poll than you do. So do you think there's something about Mayor Fung that you know that the majority of Republican primary voters don't?
I think people have taken for granted. They haven't really done the homework into what his record is. They have given him a pass on the scandals in Cranston, and they shouldn't. That's really not the kind of chief executive we want in the state of Rhode Island. I've honestly I've run really hard in my elections. There's nothing on me. I'm telling you, I've had very, very hard elections. Every bit of my background they've gone over with the fine-tooth comb, and you won't find corruption in my background. I've always stood up for the people of my district, of my state. I've tried always to keep their best interests in mind. There's a difference between the two of us.
All right, I want to turn to what you would do if you were elected governor, Ms. Morgan. Rhode Island's last Republican governor, as you know, was Don Kucheri. When Governor Kucheri took office, the state budget was $5.4 billion. When he left office, it was $7.9 billion. That's a nearly 50% increase during 2 terms with a Republican as governor. What do you think Governor Kucheri did wrong to allow that kind of spending growth on his watch?
You know, I really admired Governor Kucheri. He was the governor while I was the state chairman, and I think he had a real business sense I mean, he had been a chief executive in a large company. The difference is he didn't know how government worked, and wasn't able to deal as effectively as I think he should have been within the political realm. He tried to learn it. It's tough up there. You guys are up there all the time. I've been in politics now for a while. I've been in the State House for 8 years, and I've actually read the budget 6 times. So I've been involved in that process. I know where the wasteful spending is. I know where to go and find it and dig it out and eliminate it. I don't think he did.
Name one place you would go and look for that wasteful spending, or have someone else on your staff go and look.
DOT.
What about it specifically?
You know, earlier this year I did do a study on one particular contract. It was the engineering contract for the southbound viaduct, which is right by the Providence Place Mall. That contract, the RFP was for $1 million contract. It has now grown to $35 million through change orders. It has not allowed the people of Rhode Island to benefit from competitive bidding. This has just been change order after change order after change order. I brought that to everybody's attention. I think that's a place we need to go and investigate. I recently saw a ranking. Rhode Island has the 2nd highest engineering costs in the country. Something is wrong with that. We also have the highest per mile cost, per mile per year cost to maintain our roads and bridges. There's something wrong with that as well. We need to figure out what we're doing wrong. So DOT is a perfect place to start.
Before we get to our rapid fire section, if you know where the waste is, why did you make a big announcement that you're going to take on Arlene Violet as an Inspector General and former Republican gubernatorial candidate Ken Block to do an assessment of Rhode Island government looking for waste? You seem very confident you knew where it was.
Well, you need partners. You need partners to help you with it. An Inspector General is an invaluable tool to get out at the waste, the fraud, the abuse. Just invaluable. That's a whole group of investigators run by Arlene Violet in this case that goes out and looks at, it's a target-rich environment in our state government. So she will be invaluable to me. She'll be a helpmate, as well as Ken Block. He does technology. He does data mining.
Would he be looking at the DOT? That's where you seem to think most of the waste is.
No, he's offered to do the temporary disability insurance right now to look and see if there's wasteful, abusive abuse going on there.
Let's get to a rapid fire section. You've done this before, so you're very familiar with this section. We're looking to get through some topics quickly, and I would like to hear a one-word answer from you on most of these questions. Are you pro-choice or pro-life?
I am pro-life.
Should Rhode Island legalize recreational marijuana, yes or no?
Not at this time.
If he wins re-election in District 15, do you support giving Nicholas Mattiello a new term as Speaker of the House in January?
I won't be voting for him. I'm not going to be there.
Do you think he's earned that seat once again?
I don't.
And letter grade for President Donald Trump?
You know, he's neither right on everything nor wrong on anything. Letter grade, I don't know. I don't give letter grades.
You're a teacher. You must have given letter
grades. I used to. That's right.
All right, final rapid fire question. Do you support or oppose a state law which would make it illegal to sell or possess semi-automatic rifles such as the AR-15?
I don't. As long as a law-abiding person buys it, I think it's fine.
I want to say about a different Republican governor right across the border from Rhode Island. You have America's often ranked most popular governor, Charlie Baker. He's a Republican governor in a blue state, just like you want to be. But he has faced blowback in his own party because he's, for example, criticized President Trump. He recently signed a $15 minimum wage bill. Do you agree with Governor Baker's approach, and what lessons do you take from it?
You know, I think he has a common sense, practical approach, so I do agree with his approach. In all cases, I'm going to be, as a chief executive, I'm going to be figuring out what is right for Rhode Island and for Rhode Islanders. You know, in specific, you ask about specific policies. You know, I don't agree with the high minimum wage. I just don't think our small business climate here can support it. We have small businesses that are already struggling. We have to do some real fundamental change to our business foundations, the foundations of our business. I have talked about this before. We have so many bad laws, policies, practices that we really need to cure those first. We need to reform an awful lot about our business climate before we can start piling more mandates from the state onto our small business community. The small businesses that are surviving now have been doing it with grit and doing it against unbelievable odds that have been imposed upon them by our government. We don't need to put any more on them.
You've criticized Alan Fung's proposal to drop the minimum wage to 5% within 4 years due to affordability. There might be some voters who say we want someone, swinging for the fences on a tax cut, even if you don't have a plan yet to pay for the whole thing. What do you say to that criticism that your job as a Republican governor would be to go for the biggest tax cuts you can think to announce?
You meant sales tax.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sales tax. But
yes.
that's fine. I understood what you meant.
My mistake.
Listen, I think he put out that proposal just because it was a nice soundbite, not because he really intends to do it. It's irresponsible to just say you're going to cut $347 million out of the budget without understanding the dynamics of how the budget is put together. I don't think he has an understanding of it. I think his consultant said, use this, it'll attract Republicans, but it's not a good way to go about putting a budget together. I, on the other hand, have said, listen, it was 2 years ago, the governor had us pass the Amazon sales tax on internet purchases. That is projected to bring a large amount of money in that grows every year. I'm going to take that money, and instead of using it to grow government, I'm going to use it to reduce the sales tax. The projections are over the next 3 years, we should be able to go down 1%, and then incrementally after that. If we can go faster, we will. But it's paid for. We're not creating just a huge hole. There is a way to cut the size of government, but it has to be responsible. You can't just say, well, I'm going to cut something without having a plan to do it.
While in office, then Governor Lincoln Chafee ordered the state police and sheriff's department to not hold any individual wanted by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and that still stands. As governor, would you issue an executive order requiring state law enforcement to work with ICE, including holding those they pull over if there is an ICE detainer for that individual?
I would. I don't think it's good for us to be a sanctuary city. We really need, I've always believed that we are welcoming to immigrants, but they have to have permission to come here first. And for us to be a sanctuary city, or a state in this case, it's not good for all the immigrants who come here the right way. So yes, my state police will cooperate with the federal authorities.
So unless I missed it, did you publicly support Alan Fung when he signed in an agreement with the Department of Justice to work with ICE, just as it sounds like you would do if you became governor?
I think he did that in Cranston, yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, did I support him publicly? I don't recall that. I recall his own police chief saying that they've always, in Cranston, acted the same way towards illegal immigrants as Providence and Central Falls. So he didn't understand where the change was coming in.
You've linked in this debate and elsewhere Alan Fung with Speaker Mattiello. You've criticized, you said you wouldn't want the Speaker to have another term as Speaker at this point, but Alan Fung has accused you of, he said, I think in last week's radio debate, playing patty cakes with the Speaker. He pointed out the fact that the GOP minority office was renovated with money that the Speaker put up. You voted for the budget the Speaker and Governor Raimondo put together in 2015. What do you say to that criticism that you're turning on Speaker Mattiello now just because you need to for the election?
I've never played patty cakes with Speaker Mattiello. We have been at odds on a great many things, and it has sometimes made our relationship testy. I did listen. The renovations in the Republican caucus offices, it was a mess. It was just time for it to be renovated. I happened to be the leader at the same time, so it got done. There's no patty cakes going on.
All right.
No special favors.
Patricia Morgan, just about out of time. We have just about half a minute left. We asked the Democratic candidates this question last week during a debate, so I'm going to ask you the same. Who do you think was the best Rhode Island governor in the last 50 years?
Oh, God, in the last 50 years. I'm not that good of a student of our governors, to be honest with you, so I couldn't tell you who. I mean, John Chafee, I wasn't here when he was governor, but I've always heard that he did just an excellent job, so I suppose it was him.
All right, Patricia Morgan, thank you very much for accepting our invitation to this debate. And a reminder to our viewers, Cranston Mayor Alan Fung declined our invitation to this debate. Coming up, we bring in Eyewitness News political analyst Joe Fleming for a political roundtable, what you need to know about where the races stand. We'll be right back. Thank you. Eyewitness News is your local election headquarters. Welcome back. I'm Tim White. If you're just tuning in, we were just joined by Republican candidate for governor Patricia Morgan as part of our debate series. Cranston Mayor Alan Fung refused our invitation. Back in studio now with me is colleague Ted Nesi and our Eyewitness News political analyst and pollster Joe Fleming. Gentlemen, so I've been moderating debates at Eyewitness News for 8 years now, and not once has there been a major party candidate that has declined our invitation to a debate. And already this year, it's happened in both races. Right. You know, these are missed opportunities, I think it's safe to say, for voters to learn more about a candidate that's not in a canned soundbite or in a paid advertising. Joe, what do you think has changed, and is this the new norm?
Well, I think what's changed is the fact that both the front runners believe they could lose ground by debating instead of gaining ground. I think both felt they had a comfortable lead in the primaries, and that in a debate they could say something that could hurt them in the general election. I think the voters of Rhode Island would have liked to seen the both frontrunners in a debate to get a better idea for the primary, but they both tactically felt it was better not to be in this type of debate. I think in the general election, both of them have to debate. I think it's important that we have debates. I think there'll be a lot more criticism in a general election than there is in the primary.
So you think it'll be a change of tune after September 12th?
Oh, I definitely think so. And I think if they don't debate, I think there will be a public outcry.
Well, Ted, as we pointed out at the top of the debate, this was an about face for Alan Fung. He was in this studio, sitting right over here where Joe was when he said he would debate his primary opponents, and we've pointed out repeatedly that he is he's had a change of heart in that area. You talk to the campaigns all the time, you know, as Joe just pointed out, it was a strategic decision, but is there a risk going into the primary?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, when you don't debate, you create an issue for the other opponents, right? There, you know, as Joe said, that clearly Gina Raimondo and Alan Fung are seen as the front runners in the two-party primaries, and that means that the underdog candidates, Patricia Morgan, who we just heard from, Matt Brown on the Democratic side, they need things to give them attention, get the momentum. Not debating lets them do sort of a good government, you know, motherhood and apple pie, you know, everyone should debate. What are you hiding from the voters? It also, you know, can feed into impressions of arrogance on the part of a candidate. Why don't you think you need to debate? Why don't you need to answer questions? But I'm not saying anything the campaigns aren't aware of. They certainly weighed, I think, the risks, and as Joe said, I think they felt there was more risk than reward.
The other thing is, too, if you want to criticize the governor or Mayor Funk for not debating, you need resources to do that, to put paid media on TV. Neither of the other candidates have a great deal of resources to come back and counter that. They're relying on the media to basically say the true frontrunners aren't debating. They don't have those resources they really need.
All right, Joe, let's talk about turnout. You're like the master of turnout numbers for Eyewitness News, and especially in a primary, turnout numbers are hugely important. So what do you think the turnout in both primaries are going to be on September 12th? It's a wacky date. It's on a Wednesday. Where do you think it's going to be, and who does that hurt or help?
Okay, overall statewide is about 750,000 registered voters. In Rhode Island, the primary turnouts are fairly small. In 2014, the Democrats had 128,000 people who voted in that primary. We had a very hot and heavy governor's primary. This year, I expect the turnout to be under 100,000 at this point. I have not seen a great deal of enthusiasm out there. I don't see a lot of motivation from the general public to get out there and vote. I don't see a lot of really hot and heavy state representatives and senators primaries or mayor races that's going to push the turnout up. So I think the Democratic side could be under 100,000. I think that could help Matt Brown some, because the governor has a block of voters who just don't like her. Basically public sector employees, the real strong progressives that are probably with Matt Brown, they're going to be out to vote because they're motivated to get out and vote. So I think a small turnout could help Matt Brown. On the Republican side, 4 years ago we had about 32,000 people. Again, Ken Block and Alan Fung ran a very aggressive primary. We're seeing a good primary on the Republican side, but I still see the turnout going down some, maybe 20 to 25,000 on the Republican side. Again, there's been no public polling, so you don't know who that's going to help on the Republican side, because it depends where the turnout comes. If Alan Funk could bring a big turnout in Cranston, obviously that's going to help him.
Not to sound like a broken record, but we also had a series of debates in 2014 before the primary, 2 for Republicans, 2 for the Democratic candidates, and that obviously brought a spotlight on those races that were a big deal. All right, Ted, let's look at the Democratic primary now. I know we just had a Republican primary debate, but in other states we've been seeing progressive candidates winning in upsets, right? We just saw yesterday longtime Democratic congressman in Massachusetts, Mike Capuano, was defeated by City Councilwoman Ayanna Pressley, and we saw other examples in New York. You have to imagine that this is on the mind of the Raimondo campaign as they face a more progressive candidate, Matt Brown.
My phone blew up last night when the race was called for Pressley, as the people working on the more progressive campaigns in the Democratic primary, governor's race, the LG race, elsewhere, said, look, it's happening, get ready for next week. You know, when you talk to the governor's campaign, Governor Raimondo's campaign, Lieutenant Governor Dan McKee's campaign, first of all, they don't necessarily accept that they're not progressive, right? They might not be the most progressive candidate, but they're trying to argue they have progressive policies in their platforms. But they also say, look, you know, every race is unique. You know, Ayanna Pressley had a lot of resources behind her. She was well known in Boston as a city councilor. It's a different kind of district. It's a majority-minority district. They say, you know, there were other progressive challengers who didn't come close in Massachusetts yesterday in those congressional primaries. So, you know, the ones where someone is upset get a lot of attention. But I do think that progressive energy that we're seeing, you know, we just don't know. There's been no public polling of the primaries here in Rhode Island, so we just don't know both where the candidates stand and how fired up people are to vote in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, for that matter.
You know, one test of that will be the lieutenant governor's race. We have progressive candidate Aaron Regenberg, and we have the incumbent Democrat Dan McKee there. Do you see a progressive groundswell in Rhode Island?
I don't know if there's a really strong progressive groundswell. We've seen the last couple of years progressives doing well at the General Assembly level. We're going to find out on next Wednesday whether it's going to keep moving up with the governor's race and the lieutenant governor's race. Again, I think the lieutenant governor's race is going to be a lot with turnout. The advantage Dan McKee has is a lot of mayors in the city and towns really working hard to get their vote out for him, to try to counter all this progressive movement. So, I mean, we're going to see how strong the progressives really are and how big the turnout is. That's going to really determine a lot of this.
And I do think we were talking, Joe and I were talking about this yesterday, actually. We talk every day when it gets into an election about, you know, I don't think most analysts are ruling out the possibility of a Matt Brown victory on the Democratic side or a Patricia Morgan victory on the Republican side. And again, it might not be the most likely scenario, but if they were both to win, you've totally scrambled the dice on what Rhode Island's fall campaign will look like, because most people have been expecting for a long time time, a rematch of 2014. Gina Raimondo, Alan Fung, and then a third-party candidate, last time Healy, this time Trillo.
Do you see a path for a Brown upset here?
Well, I do see somewhat of a path. For example, this race reminds me of the 2016 presidential Democratic primary in Rhode Island with Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. The Clinton campaign, we thought the Clinton campaign was going to come in and just wipe the state out because Clinton's always done well here, her husband. However, it didn't seem like there was a lot of enthusiasm for Hillary Clinton in that race. I'm seeing a lot of the same with the governor right now. You know, people feel she's going to win the primary, but there's not a lot of enthusiasm out there. Where if Matt Brown could build an enthusiasm with the anti-Raimondo vote, it could really give him an advantage here.
I want to go back to turnout because, as Ted always likes to remind me, it's not just turnout. Tell me where the turnout is, right?
Yeah.
Let's go to the Republican primary and Cranston Mayor Alan Fung. Is he just dumping resources into his own city to make sure he gets out the vote there?
Just like he did 4 years ago. I think he's going to really try to crank the vote up in Cranston. We're not going to see a big Republican vote in Providence, Pawtucket, Woonsocket. We're talking in the hundreds in some of these areas. You're going to see the vote in pockets in Warwick, Cranston, and South County mostly. Where Patty Morgan probably has some more strength down in South County because she's from West Warwick. I think Alan Fung is going to try to really crank up some big numbers in the city of Warwick to really propel him into this election. Remember, you're going to need maybe 14,000, 15,000 votes to win the Republican primary.
And don't forget, not every voter is going to the polls for the same reason, right? So sometimes a voter's going, grabbing a ballot, and they only care about, say, the mayor's race, you know, and that they wind up casting a vote in the governor's race, and even, this is Rhode Island, most voters are independents, and they can choose either party. So you have, Warwick's a good example that Joe just said. You have that seat is open for the first time in years with Scott Avedisian leaving. You have a very contested primary for incumbent acting Mayor Joe Solomon on the Democratic side. I believe Republican Sue Stenhouse has no opponent on the Republican side. So that might be a reason for independents in Warwick to go into the Democratic primary. All those kind of factors all over the state scramble the map.
And you won't know that to 8 o'clock when you actually see the numbers come in, because it's very hard to get a feel for turnout in a Democratic or Republican primary.
Which is why you have to be on WPRI.com and
Absolutely.
Channel 12 and Fox Providence.
I anticipate a late night that night, 30 seconds left. Ted, what are you going to be looking for on primary night?
Well, we're going to immediately look when the first returns come in. Joe and I'll be poring over, you know, are these precincts that you'd expect to be going for one candidate or another, and are they overperforming or underperforming? And if you start to see certain parts of the state that should be strong for a Gina Raimondo or an Alan Fung not doing well for them, then you know they might be in trouble. So it's, you know, it's the same thing every year. You look for, are they bringing out their vote or not?
Yes or no, Joe? Is this 2018 the year of the upset?
It could be.
Come on, Joe.
Again, with no public polling, you're only guessing. I would not be surprised seeing one upset at least on Wednesday night.
We always respect when you straddle the fence there. Joe Fleming, Eyewitness News political analyst and pollster, and Eyewitness News reporter Ted Nesi, thank you very much for joining us. Tonight at 10 o'clock on Fox Providence and 11 o'clock on WPRI 12, we're going to have a complete recap. And if you missed any of our debates, you can always find them online all season long. WPRI.com. For Joe Fleming, Ted Nesi, I'm Tim White. Thank you for watching.